Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Borough briefing with the London Borough of Waltham Forest. These Borough briefing series provide a platform for local authorities to talk about some of the key issues affecting communities and neighbourhoods, and creating a forum for promoting future plans for areas undergoing change, as well as providing the wider industry valuable insights into the borough's priorities. And we're recording this session, so it'll be available to others who aren't able to be with us this morning. So Waltham Forest join us today to update us on its political ambitions, its plans for economic recovery, and their support for businesses and culture, as well as an explanation of the Plan Borough Master Planning programme. So before we start, I'd just like to remind everyone that there will be a chance to ask the speakers some questions at the end. So please do post your questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. So to kick off, I'd like to hand over to Councillor Simon Miller, Cabinet Member for Economic Growth and Housing Development. And Simon's going to give us an overview of the borough's ambitions and priorities. Simon.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you very much to you all, and a very good morning to you. It's always delightful to do these events. It's always good to see so much interest in our particular corner of North East London. So ordinarily, when I do talks like these, I talk to our overarching ambitions. I set out the vision for growth, the determination to build 27,000 new homes over the next 15 years, to transform our town centres. So as a borough, we are blessed with 8 unique and different town centres. We want to see those change, we want to see those improve for the benefit of our residents. And above all, we want to improve the life opportunities and life chances of our people. And that means building resilience in our economy locally. It means creating good, sustainable jobs which are there for the future and there for changes to the way in which we work. But I think today it will be much more used if I reframe that discussion and talk to it in the context of COVID recovery and our economic recovery action plan, what it means for us as a council as we emerge, hopefully, from this awful pandemic. We look to the future and we look to meeting the challenges of that future, particularly how we meet the challenges of the climate emergency, the need to be able to live in dense urban environments, but moving towards net zero carbon emissions and carbon neutrality as quickly and as effectively as we are able without causing unnecessary detriment to the lives of our people, particularly our most vulnerable. So I think as a borough, we've had a good COVID crisis. Like all London boroughs, we have lost far too many of our people, including council workers, and there is nothing that we can do to make good that particular tragedy. As we move forward, we're absolutely focused on connecting our people to jobs. We have been especially hard hit as a London borough by the decline in employment as a consequence of COVID. We have yet to fully understand exactly what the removal and wind down of the furlough scheme will mean for our people, but we're absolutely determined to do all we can as a council to connect our people to jobs with a rolling programme of job creation, creating ourselves 1,000 new jobs each year, and working with our partners and investors to create further jobs beyond that, making certain that it's those who are furthest from the job market who have greatest access to those roles. But that's part of a much wider reset of the council, a change in the way in which we go about things. Because what's become all too clear as a consequence of COVID, and indeed as a consequence of changes to the environment and the way in which we live, manifest particularly in those awful flash floods last Sunday, is that people are more concerned about where they live. They have real concerns about unfettered development, and what they want to see is development that benefits the community, that repairs historically underinvested in infrastructure and brings forward new opportunity. And it's our challenge as a council to enable that. Now, our commitment to growth, our commitment to the future prosperity of our people is undimmed. It has not changed. But what we do know is that we need to find a new way of communicating the benefits of that to our people that addresses the concerns that they may have around climate change and of change more broadly in their communities. At the same time, we need to make sure there is absolute certainty for our investors. So as a council, we are investing in our borough. We have a capital investment programme of in excess of £520 million, which we hope will kickstart and continue the transformation of infrastructure in our borough on which our people rely. That's not just transport infrastructure, but health infrastructure and community infrastructure, the creation of a new hospital, of a network of health hubs providing better community care. But it's also a spur to much wider investment. That investment, though, needs to be framed in a clear planning framework. And we, as a council, have spent the last 2.5 to 3 years bringing forward what I hope is by far and away the best local plan of any London borough, and what I also hope will be the best local plan of any local authority. When I say best, I mean best in terms of the certainty that it provides, the clarity that it provides, what it does to protect our heritage architecture where that exists, what it does to enhance communities that are in transition, and what it does to transform areas where growth has been poorly felt up to this point. But that local plan is also going to be complemented by a whole series of master plans that Sarah, Jonathan and Stuart will talk to. I think, from memory, there are 14 master planning exercises ongoing at the current moment, which is an extraordinary level of work and activity by the team. But we know that these master plans are necessary, not just to ensure that development comes forward in the right way, that investment works for the widest number of people possible, but is also strategically focused and delivers for the developers themselves. But we know that it's necessary to make certain that communities can have trust and faith in that development, that they can have trust and faith in us as a council, but also that our investors can look to us with certainty, knowing that with a clear framework, with really clear red lines as to what will work, what won't work, and what we want to achieve, they can make those investments with confidence. I think I was asked to talk for 5 to 10 minutes. I think I've just done that. I want to make sure there's plenty of time for Q&A. So at this point, Peter, I will hand back to you. Thank you all.
Jolly good. Well, thank you very much, Simon. And now we're going to turn to Stuart Murray, as Strategic Director for Economic Growth and Housing Delivery, who's going to update us on some of those plans that Simon's just been talking about. Stuart.
Thanks very much, Peter. I think I'm taking control of the slides, but I'll just check. Yeah, I think what Councillor Simon has set out here is a really ambitious programme post-pandemic. And we've got a really strong political leadership at Waltham Forest. And we have a recent a change in leadership as well, with a new Councillor Grace Williams joining us as the leader in September. Councillor Simon Miller will be part of that strong cabinet in setting the direction to lead Waltham Forest through the recovery post-pandemic. We've reset the council. Can you change the slides? Next slide, please. We've reset the council around an inclusive growth programme. This is very much building on what Councillor Simon Miller said about Economic Recovery Action Plan. We've got a really ambitious growth programme. We're not afraid of good growth, inclusive growth, and intensification that's appropriately done to the highest quality. And that will be very much part of building our way out of recession and getting people into those local jobs. And this high growth contained in the ambitious Waltham Forest local plan, which will go to a public examination this autumn, shows 52,000 square meters of industrial floor space. So we're very much focused on industry and jobs. We are still got a very strong economic base, which has been critical coming through the pandemic, and 27,000 additional homes, of which we've got a target for half of those being affordable. And the council leading the way on that. So we've got our own house building company, 60 Bricks, which have got an ambition to deliver 4,000 homes over the coming 10 years, or trying to achieve maybe up to a quarter of the housing delivery in the borough. So we're leading the way, and we're putting all our assets in there to make sure we can optimise the economic benefits of what the council and the borough hold as assets to deliver local benefits and growth. I think the very important thing about our reset priorities is that during the pandemic, particularly from March 2020, when we were falling into lockdown, right through 2020-21, that particular financial year, we held at least 8 virtual planning committees. We ramped up with our economic recovery action plan. We determined 3,000 new homes through the planning process locally, through the worst crisis, through the virtual system, with planning committee members and local councillors and local people being engaged and connecting with the development and growth agenda. And many of those critical decisions created the conditions for certainty for investors to continue building and investing in this borough. And so we continue to do that at pace. We're having a robust planning process that provides those key decisions to trains on site, homes built, jobs created, and high streets revitalised. I think all the real interesting USP of Waltham Forest is about this will be a cultural-led economic recovery. We put culture at the heart of what we do, and that's not just a glib sort of tokenism. This is very much embedded into our regeneration and our developments, and providing new creative related jobs in the recovery. The council itself has since been borough culture in 2019, the first borough culture. We've actually put our money where our mouth is, and we're investing directly in cultural assets. We've just opened the most amazing new creative cultural hub at Fellowship Square in the heart of Walthamstow at our town hall, which we'll just show you a little insight in a moment. And we are working with Soho Theatre, investing and refurbishing a former cinema at EMD in Walthamstow High Street, which will create a national profile comedy theatre and a real spur and investment to community artists and local groups and local jobs. And that will open next autumn when we complete the building works. And this is very much part of the borough being very proactive with its communities, putting communities at the heart of everything we do, connecting people with jobs, as Councillor Miller said, safe and healthy lives post-pandemic, confidence in our future with the council investing in our borough, in our people, and creating what I think is really getting real momentum, this 15-minute neighbourhoods, and how culture is at the heart of that, and addressing climate emergency issues as Councillor Miller described. Next slide, please. And that inclusive growth strategy, as you heard, is where the council with its partners, and that's be it the NHS, developers, our house building programme, TfL, despite their financial challenges, we're investing in transport. There's over £500 million of capital investment in the borough's capital investment strategy for the next 3-4 years, of which last year we spent the most that the council had ever spent, £135 million. So there are a lot of people on site working in jobs, apprenticeships, training, skills, building our way out of this recession. And that's going to continue for the next 3 years as we really tackle the pandemic head on and build for the future. And I think very importantly, where we are working with our partners and contractors, that social value contribution to our local people and local communities is really important. And you can see some statistics there where we've got workplace placements, we've got hours of work of young people in those development, those contracts, particularly our town hall project and our other housing estate regeneration schemes, and a value of £33 million of social investment in our communities. And we see that as a circular opportunity, local jobs, apprenticeships, placements, artistic, creative enterprise opportunities, supporting local businesses. We've got a very robust SME local economy. The small businesses, we've been supporting them with grants through the pandemic. We're trying to now allow them to grow. Next slide, please. And this is our incredible cultural investment at Fellowship Square, Walthamstow Town Hall, Waltham Forest Town Hall, which opened earlier this month with an amazing VIP event. And now we're opening this to the community. This has been a phenomenon. This is a £25 million investment, which has created a cultural hub right at the heart of the borough, which will then be enhanced across the whole of Waltham Forest. Some of those schemes I mentioned, EMD Cinema, the new theatre, William Morris Gallery, which is WMG, and in our high streets across Waltham Forest. We're also developing part of our jobs recovery, a cultural academy. So we have very fortunately got the Mayor of London's designation of the Creative Enterprise Zone at Blackhorse Lane. And we are working with Soho Theatre and other cultural partners to create the new jobs in the creative sector, the cultural sector, be they artists, stage set technicians, performance, even, dare I say, comedians, new comedians in Waltham Forest. And that'll sit alongside the Dean Street, Soho, Central London theatre that our operator provides. And we're also investing in our high streets. So at Leytonstone, we've got a great Leytonstone Loves Film Autumn agenda. We're putting cultural hubs. We're using our libraries as cultural opportunities, and we're creating bigger public realm spaces for utilising active travel, cultural events, and revitalising our high street, which is, some of them had taken a battering over the pandemic. Interestingly, our relationship to Central London, probably Waltham Forest high streets have benefited with people being local more, with the Central London workforce being at home. And so we're utilising that opportunity, but also supporting Central London in enabling investment in transport for people to get back into work safely. Next slide, please. And this translates into our spatial plan, which is encapsulated in our local plan with our economic recovery action plan and our growth strategy. You're going to hear more about this from Sarah in a moment, about our area frameworks, which cover virtually the whole borough. We're very much looking at the borough in different contexts, different characters, different approaches to scale and development of density of growth. So we have the north area, which is north of the North Circle, Chingford, Hymes Park, and Epping Forest. We have the central part of the borough with Walthamstow, Blackhorse Lane, around the wetlands, which is an amazing natural environment. And we have the south of the borough, which includes very significant new growth areas around Lea Bridge Station and Leyton Mills, which you'll hear about. And of course, the very significant Whipps Cross Hospital major health development, which is going through a planning process now. And I think particularly I wanted to comment about this is very much about working with local communities, engaging ward councillors, local residents, local businesses, that we're investing in our people to get out of this recession and seeing the benefits of growth, rather than what, even with the recent flooding, people are saying, oh, is development creating a problem? No, we're seeing this as mitigating problems, dealing with the necessary infrastructure to address climate emergency and climatic effects of climate change. And this is the good, sustainable approach to high quality growth. So on that point, you've got quite a few master planning areas which we're going to go into detail, and particularly at Blackhorse Lane, you've seen a transformation outside the Victoria Line tube station at Blackhorse Road. We've created a whole new 15-minute neighbourhood there, alongside Europe's largest urban wetlands, which is right on the doorstep. 3,000 homes, many thousands of those are affordable homes with a very strong, robust creative enterprise zone. And this is the Waltham Forest Way, with an enhanced cultural offer, with a new music venue going into Blackhorse Lane area, sitting alongside creative businesses, students, new homes, new communities, and a great natural asset. Thank you, Peter.
Great, thank you very much, Stuart. So lots to talk about there in the Q&A afterwards. So, and now we're going to hear from Sarah Custance, who is Masterplan Project Manager, who's going to tell us about the work on master planning, and particularly on the Leyton Development Framework. Sarah.
Thank you very much, Peter. Yeah, so sorry, let me just get this slide up and check I've got control. Yeah, so to give a bit of an overview of the master planning work we're doing, the place and design team was created at Waltham Forest around 2 years ago, and we're building a strategic approach to planning. This innovatively is bringing together design, conservation, policy and infrastructure departments to enable a holistic deliverable master planning approach, which really has high quality design and placemaking at its heart. The 15-minute neighbourhood that Stuart just touched on is a real key driver that underpins this strategy, and it's really about people and place. It isn't about a specific postcode, it's about where people feel a sense of belonging, able to live happy, healthy, fulfilling lives on their doorstep in a truly accessible for all environment, and really looking to create a more inclusive place with strong community participation, local social interaction, and a sense of belonging. Now, through this approach, we have more opportunities for residents and businesses to engage in shaping this shared vision for the future. There's more joined up communication across land ownerships. We're able to better coordinate development and investment coming forward. We can protect and enhance job opportunities for local people by linking with that borough's wider economic recovery action plan and reset priorities. We're really able to prioritise proposals for local infrastructure connectivity and public realm improvements, further building on infrastructure investment like our award-winning Enjoy Waltham Forest programme, which has really moved us further than any other place in the country with active travel. And through this, we're also able to better and reveal and celebrate our borough's unique natural and historic assets, like occurred at the opening of the stunning Walthamstow wetlands that you can see on this image. Now, the challenge of this is to ensure that the right forms of intensification occur in the right locations. And to help guide this as a council, we're taking a proactive, holistic approach across land ownerships to really ensure that high quality, considered intensification revitalises existing neighbourhoods and high streets and also creates new ones. And that within this, that we also support the sustainability of the built environment and respond, as both Councillor Miller and Stuart have been talking about, to that climate emergency. We're really seeing this master planning approach as being able to realise and coordinate the benefits and investments across land ownership boundaries over the next 15 years of our emerging plan period. Now, successful master planning that takes a holistic and comprehensive approach with a delivery focus really requires partnership working. This is across council departments, so we're working across planning, communication, property, business, regeneration, and place and design. And it also requires collaboration from an early stage with residents and communities, businesses, strategic bodies, infrastructure providers, landowners, developers, and other interested stakeholders. Alongside, sorry, just one other point, alongside us engaging a multidisciplinary design team to work on this, to really bring forward the expertise that are needed for this holistic approach. So now I'm just going to focus on two exciting master planning frameworks that we're currently undertaking. The first is the Blackhorse Lane Sill framework that Stuart just mentioned and touched on. So a sill is a strategic industrial location, and these are the main reservoirs of industrial capacity in London. They include uses like general and light industrial and logistics, and they really play a vital role to the London economy. Now, there's been a progressive loss of industrial land in London, and as a council, in alignment with the new London plan, we are very much wanting to not just retain industrial capacity, but to really encourage intensification and investment in these sill locations. Within our borough of Waltham Forest, we have a lot of industrial land, so we have this incredible opportunity to take an innovative approach to how we bring it forward and redevelop it. And we really see that through a comprehensive industrial-led vision, these areas have significant strategic potential. They can attract and increase inward investment. They can really be a key part of our COVID recovery. They can create more jobs for our local residents and really create new places in existing communities. So Blackhorse Lane Sill is a really key location for growth and transformational change within our borough. As Stuart mentions, it's set beside London's largest urban wetlands within this evolving urban context with great transport connectivities. It's located just above Blackhorse Road Underground Station and within an emerging creative enterprise zone. It's home to an incredible mix of industries and makers. And in collaboration with the GLA, we are preparing a visionary master plan to help guide sustainable change and future development. Now, this is following the GLA practice note, and we're at now stage 2 of that master planning process. This has involved engagement with landowners, businesses, and the wider community, including one of the site owners, BlackRock, and development partner, NEAT. So as a council, we're really looking to be proactive to help safeguard the future of these sites, to embed within the framework an increase in better quality industrial floor space, which really enables the retention, support and growth of existing businesses, creating new employment opportunities on the doorstep of these communities. And by leading the coordination of the plan across these ownerships, we're streamlining potential redevelopment and enhancing the potential of bringing investment into the area. We're also really ensuring that key council priorities are embedded early to enable the creation of a vibrant, creative 15-minute neighbourhood. This is looking at including things like a new waterside route, a series of new public significant spaces and yard, and creating new and improved connectivity. As part of this work, we're also taking a really innovative approach and have drafted a charter. This sets out certain commitments that will be required from landowners when development comes forward. They'll be required to increase industrial floor space, to retain existing businesses, and to enable the delivery of the wider strategic industrial location. The aspiration is that this will create a piece of planning guidance forming part of the stage 2 master plan, and we're currently working through the concept that this maybe will become a borough-wide approach to SIL sites. So next, we're just going to touch on the Leyton Mills development framework. So the Leyton Mills development framework area is located within the southern growth area, west of Leyton Underground Station and to the north of the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. The City of London Corporation has recently received outline consent for the relocation of New Spitalfields Market from its current site in Leyton to the former Barking Reach Power Station site, and this means that this site is expected to vacate around 2027. Now, this presents a unique opportunity for the creation of a new piece of city across the next 15 years on that vacated land in Leyton, but also the key strategic sites that surround it. So we really see that a comprehensive approach to the development of these sites presents one of the most significant inclusive growth opportunities ever seen within the Borough of Waltham Forest. And an integrated, coordinated master plan offers the opportunity for high quality master planning, which will inform planning guidance and de-risk the process. So we're leading a multidisciplinary design team that includes the architect Scott. We made that working on a cultural strategy and workspace typologies, SWECO focusing on transport, sustainability and energy and smart cities. We've then got property advice and viability appraisals happening, and also economic consultants Hatch working alongside the team. Now, this framework has looking at key strategically important sites, and we're reviewing the New Spitalfields Market, Leyton Mills Retail Park, Eton Manor and Temple Mills Bus Lane bus depot. Now, 2 of those sites currently fall within the LLDC planning remit, but that will be wound down in 2024, and these sites will revert back to Waltham Forest. So again, we're taking a long-term approach that's starting to look at this area holistically across this 15-year plan period, and not just looking for piecemeal development coming forward on individual sites. And this project has taken a partnership approach and was awarded 1 public estate funding with the City of London as a new partner. We're also working collaboratively with the Department for Transport, the LLDC, the Greater London Authority, the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority, Network Rail, Transport for London, Aviva and Walmart. So the area has this incredible surrounding context of Leyton with its historic buildings, the valley as a place for recreation, sport and new development coming nearby like Coronation Square. We also are on the boundary of that incredible Olympic legacy infrastructure and Stratford West Fields shopping and also high streets. So the key principles that are really guiding this work is the creation of green 15 minutes neighbourhoods with greener, healthier urbanism, creating high quality spaces and infrastructure that's really looking to improve connectivity and active travel, that's proactively involving that local economy and creating a response to the climate emergency. It's also cultural and employment-led regeneration, which is inspiring and creative for all, with a cultural anchor at the heart of the New Spitalfields Market, delivering both non-residential floor space, construction jobs and permanent jobs through a robust, economically resilient mix of uses. So what we're doing at the moment is drafting this incredible opportunity for transformational change with a cultural anchor at its heart, employment opportunities also at its heart, and providing really high quality, significant public realm through different parks, and really looking at those key routes that access for all, creating ecological buffers, extensive tree planting and improved biodiversity across the sites, and really optimizing development, but being sensitive to those surrounding context, and really looking to focus uses and heights in the most appropriate locations with positive placemaking opportunities. And just finally, as part of this, we've had an inclusive engagement period. We initially informed the local area and residents through a website launch and a press release and letter drops on the doorsteps. So we then went through a listen and learn with meeting with landowners. We set up a commonplace website to enable a greater number of people to interact with the work and leave comments. We had phone calls and public workshops with communities and residents. And then we've also been working with our young people through our youth advisory panel and also our youth offenders service to make sure there's a real range of voices that are being listened to. And at the moment, we're in the process of concluding this engagement and looking how it can really help to input within the framework. So just as a final image, what we're really looking for is this approach of people and place with communities and culture embedded at the heart as we look to redevelop these areas through the master planning approach. Thank you, everyone. I'll hand back to Peter. I think you're on mute, Peter.
Thank you very much. I still do that after all this time. We're now going to have a panel discussion with the speakers, who are going to be joined by Jonathan Martin, who's Director of Inward Investment at Waltham Forest. So, Jonathan, perhaps I can just start with you, really, because we've heard obviously a lot about the plans that are underway in Waltham Forest, but in order to deliver these requires investment, and some of that will be inward investment. Can you tell us a bit more about the borough's ambition for encouraging investment in the area?
Yes, thank you very much, Peter, and good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you at this webinar this morning with the NLA, a really trusted partner of ours. Hitting that question straight on, our aim in terms of inward investment is to really promote inclusive growth, as was said earlier this morning, particularly around how we can strengthen the market confidence that we've seen to date, riding the crest of that wave, but importantly to secure wider benefits for our residents, because it becomes a much easier discussion when residents can see the benefits from growth, and certainly from inclusive growth that impacts their neighbourhoods. So what we're looking to do, and our main sort of objectives through the Inward Investment Service, which we've badged as Invest Waltham Forest, is look at how we can welcome new investment, work to provide that certainty to developers and investors, particularly around how we will look after their schemes, de-risk those schemes, and make sure they have a smooth path through towards planning, assuming that we secure the right sort of high quality designation and schemes. I think what's important also, just in terms of your question, Peter, is that positive engagement and that positive feel that we will hopefully bestow upon investors that come to the borough. One of the things I really like to sort of mention in these types of briefings is that our most successful investor is an existing investor that comes back to do more business. And we have a lot of repeat investors in the borough who act as great advocates for us. And that's what we really want, that sort of peer-to-peer understanding within the industry, but also importantly within the individuals within those organizations, because one of the things we are looking for is that positive connection with people. It's a big people business, whether you're dealing with residents, communities, or indeed investors and developers and contractors. There's always that personal connection that we want to drill through in terms of that confidence of an inward investment service. How do we do that? This sort of thing, Peter, is how we engage with our market. My particular section is really market facing, it's outward facing, it builds on the great work that you've heard presented by my colleagues and also Councillor Miller in terms of the way we're engaging and really looking at how we can promote the borough, not just in terms of the borough itself, but this part of East London and the wider sub-region. We belong to many other organisations that are spatially quite disparate, such as the Innovation Corridor, which is London, Stansted and Cambridge, and we promote this part of London into those spatial areas. What does that mean in terms of how we do that? We'll do virtual briefings. We do investor tours, which have proved very effective. We do investor briefings around round tables, dinners, and we'll also look at walk-in tours, obviously with a mind on the environment as well, Peter. So we've done quite a few walk-in tours in and around the borough, which really get you into that fine grain of what's being built and what's being delivered. It's been quite clear over the last 3 or 4 years that, as was pointed out by my colleagues, places such as Blackhorse Lane have transformed in an unrecognisable way. 2015, I joined the borough. There were just sheds there and not much else. And since then, we've had an absolute wave of great investment go into that location, bringing in all sorts of new tenure, new types of floor space, new types of businesses, employment, and obviously new additional homes, which are high quality, which we're really proud of. In terms of that kind of final link to the inward investment thrust, we're looking at how we can provide development updates to our development sector. And again, we are putting our money where our mouth is, as was said by Stuart. It's important for us that we need to be able to demonstrate we're at the table. We understand exactly where developers are coming from. We understand abnormal issues around site delivery. We understand the issues that can come forward around viability and how we can work together to breach and hopefully bridge some of those issues. One of the things we do think is important is market intelligence. And that's a big piece of what the Inward Investment Service does. It is looking at how we can link up various potential landowners, as was mentioned by Sarah, with investors who are looking for sites to come forward. But we're now really getting into the fine detail of how we can breach this in terms of different sectors. And I think in terms of that sectors, one of the things that we've seen as a really interesting transition is, Sarah mentioned it at the beginning of her presentation, there's a lot of industrial land in the borough. And we've seen a lot of change over the last few years with that industrial land. But what we've seen most recently is a lot of industrialists come into our borough looking for sites to bring forward industrial land uses because of the change around COVID and the impact of the pandemic on the way people are now shopping, last mile logistics. We're seeing a lot more interest in that coming forward. And we're working as part of our Inward Investment Service to make sure that stays something we are focused on. The strategic industrial land work that Sarah mentioned is really a response to that, Peter. It's making sure that we can address the concerns with the existing businesses who want to expand. And we've got to make sure we can find space for them, build and deliver that pipeline, which is so important. But importantly, attract other new investors into various sectors. So we've been pleased quite recently to find out we've got a vertical farm, which is agri-tech, in the borough in Lea Bridge, and we've met with them, we've put them in touch with some of our contacts, and we've helped them secure some public and private sector support in terms of funding to the tune of a few million. And this is really important for them in terms of their growth plans and ambitions. So again, we're right at the cutting edge of certain industries, Peter. And I think that's where I'd probably end, apart from saying we welcome sharing our sort of journey with the NLA as a trusted partner. And I'm happy to take questions with my panelist friends as well.
Great, thank you very much. Before I ask questions, the others, can you just tell me a bit more about agri-tech? I'm not quite sure what it is, and it's not something I would have associated Waltham Forest with particularly. So tell me more about that. Of course.
So we're full of surprises, and London Harvest is the name of the company, and they're in the sector called agri-tech, which is essentially agricultural technology, and they are building on the premise of a virtual farm. A vertical farm, I beg your pardon. This vertical farm is indoor grown crops, herbs, and plant-based produce. What it has demonstrated in their case, they've been working on supplying basil as a herb to a particular pizza outfit, which I won't name because we're not being subsidized by them just yet. And essentially, it has allowed this company to benefit from basil being grown in Waltham Forest, which is hours away from their actual depots and manufacturing facilities. And it saves that basil being flown in from Italy, which is where they were getting their basil from before. So it's a whole new sector. It's very, very specialist, and it's something that's going to grow because of its carbon neutral footprint. hopefully that explains it, but happy to explain more. If guests want to find out more about that, I'm happy to share that after this event.
I think that's a great story. Basil being grown in Waltham Forest. Excellent. Councillor Miller, perhaps I could just ask you, the very strong focus on culture, and obviously as a cultural borough, your year was very successful. Can you explain a little bit more? I can understand how that makes nice places, and it's great to have a theatre. How does it impact on the economy and jobs in the borough?
It's a great question, Peter. Thank you for that. So you're absolutely right. It does create nice places. It creates places in which people want to live, but it also creates opportunity. For our people in the borough, which is historically underprivileged, that exposure to the breadth of cultural events and breadth of cultural dynamism that we were able to offer as London's first borough of culture provided huge opportunity to people who otherwise would not have it. And what we have done specifically is then built routeways from those cultural events into those sectors. So we're providing job opportunities, not just for our young people, training opportunities, not just for our young people, for a whole range of our residents. But we also know that where artists congregate, other creators will come too. So there's clearly a catalyst effect that we have there. We've seen it exemplar in Blackhorse Lane on a massive scale. We're seeing it elsewhere in the borough, that where we, as a council, help create cultural heart, cultural places and cultural programmes, others who are culturally involved will seek to live there, choose to live there, become active there. That then has a magnetic effect on a wider cultural sector and a growth sector as well. So it creates the jobs, it creates a sense of place, it creates pride in place. As a totality, it helps create a much better, more cohesive borough with greater feelings of belonging across our resident base. And that, as a council, is what we are about.
Yeah, thank you very much. And was Stuart and Sarah, you both mentioned the sort of 15-minute neighbourhoods, which is clearly something which has come very much to the fore during sort of COVID discussions, recovery in cities around the world, particularly in Paris. And Waltham Forest obviously has been right at the forefront of low traffic neighbourhoods and the new changing local areas quite for the better. How does that, Stuart, perhaps I can ask you, particularly with your more strategic planning background, how does that relate to the centre? You talked about improving transport to the centre, but clearly there is a shift, isn't there, from economic activity to people spending more time working at home, spending more money locally, and that will have an impact on the centre, which is still very important for the economy of everyone in London, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think these sort of, you might say, 50-minute neighbourhoods, more hyper-local, and the central London, more global economy are mutually exclusive. In fact, they're so interlinked. And I'm part of a London-wide London Borough's GLA Economic Recovery Group. In fact, they meet every Friday lunchtime. We have been all through the pandemic to make sure that all boroughs, including outer London boroughs like Waltham Forest, are connected and working together collaboratively with the CAS, the Central Activity Zone boroughs, and inner London boroughs to come up with a joint collaborative solution to economic recovery. And 15-minute neighbourhoods is part of that, because there'll be 15-minute neighbourhoods in Westminster and Camden, as there will be, and we're trying to work very hard on in Waltham Forest. And of course, I think we're very fortunate with the NLA to see what the foreign examples are, like Paris, like the European models, and elsewhere, Copenhagen, whatever, and active travel solutions. But there has been what I could think was called a recognition at the London level, which we're all part of, is this Zoom shock, you know, where central London effectively lost out with a lot of Waltham Forest workforce were working from home, but also a lot of Waltham Forest workforce were displaced. So in unemployment terms, we're one of the most hardest impacted by the central London closure during lockdowns. And so we're working with central London boroughs to get our people back into jobs with good transport. We're working with GLA, TfL, DFT to enhance the transport offer. But also, I think what we're doing, we're reimagining our high streets and our 15-minute neighbourhoods in terms of hubs, you know, either culturally or workspace or touchdown space for people that might want to do 2 or 3 days getting into central London on the tube or the train or the bus, but they want to stay local the other days, the hybrid model of working. And the council's actually taken that forward itself. We've just moved back into our upgraded grade 2 star listed town hall to Fellowship Square, and we've adopted a hybrid model. We've got all the technology, but we're also helping local businesses and local workforce be able to come in and do touchdown space. We provide the cafes, the restaurants, the cultural spaces. We're creating different types of offer. They can get around by walking, cycling, the active travel. And we're very much focused on our high streets and town centres to reimagine those, to be those hubs. And they're supporting the central London network. So we want to get our workforce back into central London, hospitality, creative, office jobs. But we also want to give them the opportunity to have a better balance of working and living and enjoying by those 15-minute neighbours on their doorstep. And that's where we're working and sharing ideas with the central London authorities. You know, what's the whole package? What's the lifestyle? If you're a Londoner, you're living out in London, but you work in central London, what is your expectations post-pandemic? What can we collectively deliver? So it's not going back to everybody cramming onto congested tubes, which is probably not the safest way to travel in the current pandemic, but making it more enjoyable so you can get a work-life balance. And I think that will be us turning 15-minute neighbourhoods across London and Waltham Forest into realisation of better quality of life.
So Sarah, perhaps I can ask you, as you look across the borough, can everybody in a borough be within a 15-minute neighbourhood, a borough with, you know, varying densities? Does it work for everybody?
So what we're currently doing is we're really looking at this kind of Waltham Forest 15-minute neighbourhood and what that really means for us as a borough. Obviously, the kind of concept around 15-minute neighbourhoods has been around for quite a few years. So we're just looking to really look to advance that and how we can really look at those areas that we're already doing well at. So a borough where it's really easy to move around with that Enjoy Waltham Forest programme, how we can expand that to kind of create the next layer to really encapsulate as many people as possible within that. And that network of neighbourhoods and green spaces. So we're currently going through a mapping exercise where we're mapping all those key infrastructures of schools, communities, healthcare, play parks, and looking at how that approach is kind of across the borough, enabling people to access this 15-minute neighbourhood approach. And then where we're seeing new areas come forward that ordinarily not have residential components, so areas like the Leighton Mills Development Framework, when we do those mapping exercises, there are gaps. And so it's making sure that when these frameworks come forward, they plug those gaps. So there are key gaps that have been identified in some of the work of like a cultural anchor at New Spitalfields Market, improved transport connectivity, this improvement of green spaces where we've got kind of industrial car park lands. So it's looking at how we can take this holistic approach to deliver that principle across the borough in these new emerging areas.
Can I just come in there really, really quickly, just to say that, you know, this is obviously an iterative approach. It's a new idea, well, certainly as it's being implemented in Waltham Forest, but where it's exemplar best is along the Lea Bridge Road, which runs for many miles east through west across the borough. And that is now fully segregated cycle superhighway with huge improvements at every stage of that road. So walking opportunities, say parklets, green spaces, investment in district centres and town centre locations across it. When we started that programme of work, no part of that was a 15-minute neighbourhood. Now the entirety of it is a 15-minute neighbourhood, and it is easy to travel beyond that. So into Hackney going west, into Redbridge going east, within that 15-minute neighbourhood. Improved on and building on the fact that in the last 5-6 years, we have opened a station there, which then expands what you can do within your 15-minute neighbourhood that much further, providing great connectivity into Stratford within 5 minutes and then beyond into Liverpool Street within 15 minutes, as also Tottenham and the Lee Valley in the other direction. So we are active by building the infrastructure hyper-locally to start with it, building out from that. We are extending the reach of the 15-minute neighbourhood almost exponentially with each new phase of development, enabling people to live locally, but in an expansive sense.
Very good, excellent, thank you. Now we've got some questions from the audience, and I would say if anyone else has got questions, do put them in, because we've just got under 10 minutes left. So the first one is, and I guess this is aimed at Sarah, where do you feel the more typical smelly, noisy industrial uses sit within these master plans for existing industrial locations? Do you feel these need to be prioritized alongside more cultural SME industrial businesses? Good question, I think.
Yeah, and it's one that we're really looking at the moment as well. So what we're doing is we're currently creating an SPD that is a specific industrial focus, which is really looking about what are the right sectors that we have as industrial capacity within the borough, where we're looking to retain those, where we're looking to grow them, and then making sure that they're in the right locations and that they're in the right typologies as well, so that these businesses can grow. And so that's about a combination of those kind of smelly, noisy industrial uses that the borough needs, but aren't always kind of a good neighbour to residential, and making sure that we take a strategic approach that they're located in the best location possible, and then moving those more smaller cultural SME kind of maker spaces where they can be more kind of combined within a co-location approach. So we're looking at a series of different typologies of that. So one of the things which is a new emerging typology of the stacked industrial, which is allowing us to kind of increase that intensification of our industrial space, potentially allow for those kind of more smelly, noisy industrial uses on the ground and first floor, within a kind of factory, small maker spaces above it, that then allows it to sit as a standalone unit on sites. So we're not looking to always, through this kind of potential of co-location approach, put things on top of it. It may be that sites have the scale to enable a standalone unit, and that's where we would look to kind of prioritize those kind of less good neighbours in those locations. So areas like Blackhorse Lane and also New Spitalfields Market, where there is the scale of these incredible sites coming forward, really looking to identify the best locations for those with the easiest transport networks to existing road infrastructures that really minimise those kind of difficult interfaces between that residents and that kind of cyclists and pedestrian focus that we've really got, and how that kind of navigates with high goods vehicles and things, and making sure we really minimise those impacts.
Can I come in there, Peter? Because I think just in building on Sarah's point, the Waltham Forest Council also owns industrial estates. And probably what we haven't honed in on is that we have a very large freehold interest in an industrial estate in the Lee Bridge area and Walthamstow area, which is completely protected for those sorts of uses. And we won't be doing anything other than industrial intensification, and they will be accommodating those big chunky, I wouldn't say they're all smelly, but there's certainly, you know, some noisy and very industrial B2 type uses as we used to know them. And that's on the Argyle estate, which is quite vast in the south of the borough. And we're using our ownership and our assets and our influence to relocate businesses. We're also looking in our master planning around the North Circular Road, where we have a lot of industry and retail parks that are repurposing themselves. And Jonathan mentioned quite a lot of interest in industrialists and logistic companies taking up these new industrial areas. So we're adopting an industrial only led intensification process in the right areas, so we keep those industries in the borough. But on occasion, we're going to have to ask some of those smellier ones to move into better premises. So we're managing that with our asset and freehold approach.
Very good, thank you. Now I think probably this will be our final question, because it's obviously a very important one, and that's this question is, thank you for the really interesting presentations, but could you please discuss what strategies you have in place to help revitalise the high streets in the borough, which have obviously seen decline during the pandemic? And we talked about 8 town centres earlier on, so who'd like to kick off with that one?
So I'll kick off with this one. So not all of our high streets have declined over the course of the pandemic. In fact, some are doing better than they have done previously, and we're seeing real growth on a number of our key strategic high streets. I think the key thing for us is that we constantly look to increase levels of demand in and around our high streets. Now, we've done that through a whole variety of means, backed by our high streets recovery plan. In some cases, that's about increasing the amount of public realm that is available in those high streets, so shoppers, residents feel safe, they feel comfortable using them. They also have the space and the time to explore those high streets, possibly for the first time, because Waltham Forest has always been a borough in which people slept. Not so many people chose to live, particularly at weekends and during the day. Beyond that, it's about how we actively reach out through Jonathan and through his team to new businesses to bring them in, how we stimulate and how we help and how we enable our existing and champion industries to grow. And we've just allocated a whole series of money to businesses across our borough through our growth fund. And we'll continue to do that. And it's about leveraging those opportunities where they exist, finding new focus, making certain that through our planning framework and through our active business support policies, we're doing all we can to make our high streets a richer, deeper, more experiential experience, so that the traditional shops that exist on our high streets are better supported and are able to survive. But what we, make no mistake, we are aware of the challenge of online, the challenge of change, the challenge that COVID and unemployment will present, and there will be winners and losers in this process. Our job is to make sure that we minimize the number of losers to the absolute bare minimum, and that we're creating the best possible framework for growth for those businesses who are most likely to survive in the future and most likely to provide really good quality jobs, but also leisure and amenity opportunities that our people deserve.
So, Jonathan, how are you seeing interest in the borough in terms of attracting new people and the confidence in the revival of high streets?
Well, I think it's a really good question in terms of what we're actively doing, and the interest we're seeing is pan-borough, certainly in terms of the town centres that Councillor Miller's mentioned. We have seen a number of businesses come forward as a response to the pandemic, even to the extent that they would do pop-up shops that would deliver accommodation where you can have that touchdown space, a kind of bespoke office facility that can be pretty much inbuilt into an existing shop unit. One of the things we're also looking to do, and are doing as a part of that kind of recovery, is engaging with some of the absent landlords. So one of the issues we've got to address is absent and distant landlords, and we have a number of those in some of the areas in the borough, and we are making those strides to meet those landlords to see how we can get them to re-energise some of the spaces that may have been vacated as a response of the lockdowns. So that we've seen as a real key way of addressing some of these areas of concern. We've got a high streets action plan, as Councillor Miller said, which is going through that process of identifying new pop-up shops, how we can help existing shops. Our business growth team are also there to help that kind of shopping experience, how we can get more experience of how they can work better online to attract people into their shops. And there's a whole piece around using shop fronts in a new way to attract people and building on what Stuart said around that experiential position earlier, and Councillor Miller, in terms of making sure there's a destination to increase dwell time. One of the things we had looked at, Peter, was how we could make sure we worked with the high streets at Walthamstow and the market, which is a great attractor. It's our biggest outdoor retailer. And of course, in terms of these COVID and social distancing strictures prior to now, we could work with the market to make sure we brought people into those areas. We still have a plan to improve that, to get people to go up and down that over a kilometre long outdoor market, and we're working with the shops either side of the market to make sure they respond better as well. So there is an active plan to address that, Peter, and we're going through working with our businesses, working with new investors to bring in new opportunities to strengthen what we see as a critical part of our business economy.
Jolly good. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. We are now up to time, and thank you all for your presentations. We always like hearing from you, because there's always such interesting projects going on, innovative thinking. So thank you very much indeed. And I would say, if there are any other boroughs watching, if you'd like to do a briefing with us, update people about your key priorities, do get in touch. And also in the meantime, if you'd like to find out what all the London boroughs are doing, we have a publication on our website called Opportunity London, which looks at what all the boroughs are doing in terms of their local plan and economic investment. And you can see that on our website, nla.london. So this won't be for the panelists, but the audience. There'll be a little poll which will come up on your screen which if you can provide us some feedback, that would be really good, because it helps us ensure that we're providing the right sort of program for everybody, the sort of thing everyone wants to see. So thank you for filling in that. And thank you again to our panel and for letting us know what's going on in the borough. And thank you all for watching, and goodbye.